All right, before we talk quarterback and tight end for week 16, all eyes last week were on Phillip Rivers. Just want to give him some props. Congrats, Phil.
Congrats on what? They lost the game.
Yeah, I know. Didn't win the game. That doesn't matter.
I mean, okay, he didn't put up big numbers. What are we congratulating him on?
He deserves props for basically getting a fat paycheck and 5 more years of health insurance for his kids just for handing the ball off 25 times to Jonathan Taylor. For that, I think you deserve some congratulations. Well, we'll talk Rivers again, but we'll also break down every quarterback and tight end that matters for week 16 to help you win your fantasy playoffs. We still got a couple of names in the must-start category at quarterback. It's Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. At tight end, of course, Trey McBride and George Kittle. Also, no need to wait to hit that subscribe button. If you haven't done it yet, I know a lot of you have. We appreciate every single one of our subs. If you haven't, go ahead and take a second because we're trying to get to 100K before the year's over. Not much time left. Everyone helps. Thursday Night Football is going to kick things off with the Rams at the Seahawks. Should be a good one. And look, Matthew Stafford has been close to a must start for a lot of weeks, but this is going to be a tougher spot for him on the road against Seattle. Do you have any worries about him? And also, how good do you have to feel about Colby Parkinson all of a sudden?
I think you got to feel pretty good about Colby Parkinson. We know Adams isn't going to play here. Seattle 6th worst versus tight ends. I think he's got to be solid. He at least has, he's going to get targeted. He's got touchdown upside. He's got to be solid. I'm going to keep Stafford in the solid tier. I know it's on the road in Seattle. You cannot feel good here. No Adams, but he's been so good. He had 2 touchdowns against them last time. I know that was at home, but man, can you really bench Matthew Stafford? I don't know. I'm going to still say solid.
Well, you don't necessarily want to bench Matthew Stafford, but don't feel like this is going to be a great game for him. Again, road game, good defense. Wasn't great against them last time, but also don't forget, they're not going to have Devontae Adams. That's going to be huge, especially when they get to the red zone. So I think Stafford really is more just a high-end streamer this week. But speaking of, look, no Adams here. Who has been the best end zone and red zone target for the Rams lately? It's been Colby Parkinson. I broke this all down in the waiver wire video, so I won't repeat myself too much, but he isn't just the best pickup or streaming tight end this week. He's one of the best tight end plays, period. This guy has 6 touchdowns over the last 6 games. He's going against one of the best defenses in terms of allowing points to the tight end position. I mean, you basically have to start Parkinson if you can. Now, on the other hand, Seattle got Sam Darnold, AJ Barner at tight end. Don't feel quite so strongly about those guys.
Nah, I mean, you don't need to start AJ Barner. This is like desperation territory now. It looked like for a while there maybe, but now we can move on from this. I'm just going to say super flex for Sam Darnold. Like, it's not a horrible matchup against the Rams, but just where's the upside been for Sam Darnold here? Like, even last week against the Colts, there's nothing but field goals. Just super flex for Darnold.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but as the season has progressed, he's slowed down in terms of productivity, and in tough matchups, hasn't been the best. There's no rushing upside here, really, so really don't want to start Darnold, super flex only. Now, we got a pair of games on Saturday this week, so keep that in mind. Let's talk Eagles at Commanders. That game is first. Jalen Hurts, yeah, you shouldn't have been too worried. Against this Commanders defense, he's a must start. What about Dallas Goedert? Man, coming off a monster game, 2 touchdowns, could have had a third. Where do you rank him against this commie defense?
I mean, he should have had a third. He, literally, there's not a lot of things I can do better than NFL players, but I know I would have caught that pass. Well, maybe not this version of me, but, if I was the same age as Dallas Goedert. Anyways, let's move on. Don't expect that again. I'm not expecting another 2 touchdown game, but it's the Commanders. It's a good spot here. I think Goddard's got to be solid.
Got to be a solid option if you got him. You don't have to worry about tight end. Of course, this happens, right? He'll go off and then kind of fade. The targets are not predictable, but you've got to feel really good about him, at least good enough that you can start him. Can't feel too great about the Washington offense. We know Jane Daniels is not playing. Don't even worry about that. Marcus Mariota, is he in play against the Philadelphia defense here?
Barely an option in super flex leagues. I mean, borderline sit. You can't feel good here, but they are at home, and maybe they'll have to be throwing a ton at the end of the game, and he'll give you some garbage time stats.
Yeah, I mean, you're hoping for garbage time, or because he does run a little bit. but that, again, just barely keeps him afloat as a super flex option. The second Saturday game is going to be the Packers and Bears rematch here, important divisional one. So let's see. Jordan Love has been really good, and I mean like real life good, but inconsistent for fantasy. Which Love do you expect this week on the road?
You can't feel good on the road in Chicago. Probably going to be freezing cold here. You don't expect a high scoring game. And look, the Bears have been tough against QBs lately, so I'm just going to say Jordan Love like a risky streamer.
I think he's streamable. Again, with him, the real volatility is the touchdowns. They come and go. He'll have 2 or 3 in a game, sometimes 4, and then he'll have 0 once. So it's tough when you have such a good running back like Josh Jacobs, in the red zone that limits Love's upside. Are they going to have to pass a ton against the Bears? Who knows? So he's just a streamer mainly for the floor. Then on the flip side, you got Caleb Williams, who is much less good in real life, but sometimes has good weeks for fantasy. Which Caleb Williams do you expect this week at home?
Yeah, again, I just did not expect this to be like a high-scoring offensive shootout here or anything. I'm just going to say a streamer for Caleb as well. Like the Packers, they have not been great against QBs. In fact, I mean, Bo Nix just threw 4 touchdowns against them, but the Bears run the ball so well, you just can't feel great here, just a streamer.
I barely even want to keep him in the streaming conversation because, again, not just that he hasn't been great, but this team wants to run. And then we got Rome Odunze is hurt again. Luther Burden might be banged up as well. I only in keeping him as a potential streamer because you might need a guy like that, right? If you're still streaming quarterback at this point, not a lot of great options out there. And only with Parsons out, I guess that makes me feel a little better about this matchup. Now we're going to get to the Sunday slate. First, before you set your fantasy lineups, have you tried Underdog yet? Because there's still time left in the football season. You can get a gimme pick just for signing up as a new customer on Underdog. If you use code ENDGAME at checkout, you'll get a free pick plus up to $1,000 of a deposit match. That's bonus funds in your account, and then you play $5 towards any pick. You get another $100 of bonus funds in your account. It's a good time still to try Underdog, and with the holiday season here, those promos and those profit boosts are just going to continue to roll in. So try Underdog and make sure you use code ENDGAME at checkout. On Sunday, we'll start with the Chargers at the Cowboys. Okay, so Justin Herbert continues to gradually improve, right? Doesn't look quite so bad as he did when he first injured that hand. And then, hey, Oronde Gadsden, he has reappeared. Do we have to take notice?
Got to take notice, especially if QJ is out again. But look, the Cowboys, for as bad as they are against the pass, like wide receivers, QBs, they're not that terrible against tight ends. But I'll still say, okay, you can consider streaming Gadsden here. I got to feel good about Herbert this week. I'm going to say very solid start this week. I mean, J.J. McCarthy just looked good against the Cowboys. This pass defense is so bad right now. I got to think this is a spot where Herbert comes through.
Yeah, so as far as Herbert goes, again, it's been a little bit better. Well, so last week he had 29 pass attempts, which was the most in the last 4 weeks. But at the same time, the fact that that's the most he's had in the past month, a little concerning. I just wonder the upside is. I mean, that could ramp up, of course, against this Cowboys defense. It's just not my favorite because I do think there's a cap to his upside. So I'll call him a high-end streamer. And then Gadsden, again, cautiously optimistic here. He has seen his snaps go down, but he was actually more efficient last week because he used him more exclusively in those passing situations, which makes sense. So I think he's streamable. Just don't expect him to have necessarily a huge game. And then the Cowboys, you know what we're getting here. Got Dak is still going to throw it a ton, leading the NFL in pass attempts. Not sure that that's going to change anytime soon. And then Jake Ferguson is he still a streaming option?
Yeah, but that's it. Just a streaming option. I mean, we've seen him trending down recently here. Just, the upside we saw in that stretch when CD was out, just not there anymore. I'm going to say Dak this week, just a streamer as well. I mean, this is almost like the same matchup we had last week. At home against a tough defense. I got to think he'll be better this week, but you can't expect a big game here.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair comparison. This feels very similar to last week. Not a great spot for him. Don't know that they're going to have to pass the ball quite as much. They still will. But, I think he's a streamer mainly because he's got that high floor.
Do you want to get advice from Pierre and myself at the tip of your fingertips? Start sit, waiver wire, trades, and more? Well, you can do all of this and more on our new app, Draft Lane. We have the ability to view your roster, waivers, and more to give you the right feedback to make the perfect choice. Download Draft Lane from the App Store or Google Play, or use these handy QR codes. And first-time users can use code NGAME to get 10 free credits and get your questions answered today.
All right, now let's talk Vikings at Giants. Let's talk 9. He made an appearance against the Cowboys, and I mean, look, the Vikings won. His numbers weren't that bad. Can you actually do it in your fantasy lineup? Put JJ McCarthy in there.
Well, I don't know if I want to play JJ McCarthy necessarily in like shallower leagues, but I think if you're in a very deep 1 QB league, you can consider streaming him here. He has 5 passing touchdowns over the last 2 games. Giants, not a tough spot. Not as good as the Cowboys, but not a tough spot here. I think you can stream them. I cannot start TJ Hawkinson, though.
Hawkinson, no. You can't risk the 0 here. I can't risk it with McCarthy. I mean, that was the Cowboys. You know how those games tend to go. Again, the Giants, so bad against the run, really, and not that great on offense. Don't feel like the Vikings will need to pass the ball as much. There's always risk here. I got to keep McCarthy as a super flex only option for now. Do you feel any different about Jackson Dart? I mean, it was a smash spot last week, and he was, good, not great. Any chance he gets better this week? And then what about Theo Johnson?
Nah, you can't feel good this week against this Vikings defense. I'm going to say super flex only for Jackson Dart because he does at least run and, has some upside here. And Theo Johnson, just a streamer. Vikings just kind of middle of the pack against tight ends, and he is involved enough.
Not much to add there. Exactly. Dart gets you that floor. Look, if he runs in a touchdown, then that makes you a little happier, but there's not a massive ceiling, and the Vikings are a pretty tough defense, so still just super flex for me, and then Theo Johnson is still just a streamer. All right, Bengals at Dolphins. Real question in this matchup is, who's actually motivated here? Joe Burrow does not seem too motivated these days, and the Dolphins are now officially eliminated from the playoffs, so let's see what their motivation is. Let's start with the Burrow side.
Look, I know Burrow killed you last week. I know it's like, I totally get it if you're like, no, I am not starting Joe Burrow this week. Totally understandable. But this is the Dolphins defense. It's going to be sunny Florida. It should be fine here. I do worry, how mentally in is it? Because it was he looked really bad last week, but I got to take another chance on him here. I'm going to say solid. And then Mike Gesicki, even with Higgins out last week, did nothing. I'm not taking a chance here, even though the Dolphins are a good matchup for tight ends.
They are a good matchup, so I will say if T. Higgins is out, could take a chance on Gesicki, but that's the only scenario. Now look, Burrow, it could go one of 2 ways. We could just continue to see this, right? Just look like he's ready for the season to be over, which, look, how can you blame him? Or this could be a little bounce back, but at the same time, Dolphins do not get into high-scoring games these days too much. The Bengals, if there's a team that could put up points on them, you figure it was them, but I think Burrow is solid, but it kind of feels like a risky solid at this point. Always risky to consider Tua these days. It is the Bengals, though. They're at home. It's going to be nice and warm, like you said. The Bengals defense. Can I interest you in some Tua this week?
No, look, he actually came through with a nice fantasy game last week, but it was all in the fourth quarter. He went into the fourth quarter with 60 yards and somehow finished the game with 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. I don't think this version of the Bengals can blow out the Dolphins, honestly. I think this is not taking a chance on Tua here. But look, Darren Waller, again, was doing nothing the whole game and then erupted in the fourth quarter. 2 touchdowns. Tua was throwing to him relentlessly. I know we got burned by the Ravens tight ends last week, but this is the Bengals. I think Darren Waller's got to at least be a high-end streamer this week.
If there's one player that feels like the ultimate trap play for this week, it is Darren Waller because of what he did last week, and it's the Bengals, and we've seen exactly what happened. But at the same time, if you're still picking from waiver wire tight ends, why wouldn't you take a chance on Waller? You know what the risk is. It's Isaiah Likely getting nothing last week risk, but really, would you really rather trust a Theo Johnson or a Hunter Henry type? Just take a chance on Waller. All right, now we got the Bucs at the Panthers, and Tampa Bay reeling. I'm not sure what's going on there, but all right, let's just think about the fantasy stock for Baker Mayfield at this point. He's got all his receivers back. What's the excuse?
Well, he wasn't horrible last week, at least. He was okay. He looked a little bit better. Having Evans helps. Godwin fully healthy, McMillan back. I think, in this matchup against the Panthers, you can stream Baker.
Streamable, but again, don't feel like there's a big game in store here because, it's not like there's anything wrong with the offense. They got everybody back healthy. I still wonder if Baker himself is healthy, but the Panthers typically don't get into very high scoring games. So I just feel like he's more of a floor play. He's a streamer and that's it. Kate Otten, just forget about him. Like to forget about Bryce Young because, again, most of his games are very forgettable. Does he have maybe any value this week because they're at home?
Well, that's the thing. They are at home, and the Bucs have been horrible against QBs recently. Kirk Cousins just lit them up, but how good can we really feel here? Just super flex.
You can't do it. Again, Bryce Young, every few weeks he'll have one random outburst. I'm not going to count on it being this week. Not in week 16. Can't do it. Super flex only. This week, the Jets taking on the Saints in New Orleans. All right, we get to play this game again. Who's going to be quarterback for the Jets in week 16? Is it going to be Brady Cook after making his first start? Could Tyrod Taylor come back? Hey, maybe Justin Fields makes an appearance. Who knows? What do you think?
I really don't think we're going to see Justin Fields. If it's Brady Cook, no chance here. Come on, he could literally lose you your week. I think you could super flex Tyrod Taylor if you need to. Saints haven't been necessarily terrible versus QBs, but Tyrod Taylor, at least is serviceable here, but he'd be the only one I'd even consider.
Could be, but at this point, a Jets player just feels risky altogether. It's too late in the season for this. I'm not going to pay attention to who's playing quarterback for the Jets anymore. And I do know who's playing quarterback for the Saints, Tyler Shuck, and you know what? Give him some credit. He's been pretty solid, if not spectacular, the last couple of weeks. Now he gets the Jets. Is this a sneaky good start?
It is a sneaky good start. I don't want to go overboard here. It's still Tyler Shuck, but the Jets have been so bad on defense. I think you can stream them. There are worse options this week for sure. And then Juwan Johnson, I think it's time we probably got lower expectations for Juwan Johnson here. Yeah, you could stream this guy, but come on. He's just been pretty mediocre the last couple weeks.
Yeah, even in a couple of smash spots, Juwan Johnson hasn't really come through. Just barely a streamer here for a floor. I'll say I could consider streaming Shuck. It's the Jets. You saw how horrific that defense has been. And I will say I prefer Shuck over some other guys like Caleb Williams. Don't feel like he'll have a big game. JJ McCarthy. Give me Shuck over those guys. All right, Bills at Browns. Here's a must-start player. Finally, it's Josh Allen. Don't even question it. Dalton Kincaid. Well, now we got a question. Is he the tight end you want, or is it now Dawson Knox who keeps catching touchdowns?
Dawson Knox got the baby bump. I didn't know Dawson Knox had just become a father. I might have been higher on Dawson Knox last week. Come on. How good can we feel about either of these guys? I will say the Bills do throw the tight ends a lot, but really, is it going to be Knox? Is it going to be Kincaid? Is it going to be neither? I'm just going to say streamers.
Yeah, I think Kincaid still has to be your tight end of choice in this offense. You don't want to chase touchdowns. They can come and go. So, look, Knox got his last week. I don't think it's going to continue. I'm not going to consider him. And Kincaid, to me, is still just a streamer. It's not a great matchup, even as rough as the Browns' defense has looked the last 2 weeks. Though not quite as bad as the offense looked last week. So, Shedeur Sanders, talk about plummeting to earth now. That's why we said you probably shouldn't start him. Any reason to consider starting him against Buffalo? Or, well, Harold Fannin, definitely have a reason to consider him.
Yeah, unfortunately for Harold Fannin, this is the one matchup I was worried about in the fantasy playoffs. Bills the toughest versus tight ends, but he is so heavily targeted that I think he still at least gives you a floor this week. So I'm still going to say one of your better streaming options. Shedeur, no, you cannot take a chance here. Maybe garbage time, but are you really banking on that? No thanks.
No way. You cannot start Shedeur Sanders. You saw proof of that last week. And then Harold Fannin, you can't ignore 25 targets just over the last 2 games. He has more targets than all the wide receivers in this offense combined. He's clearly the favorite target here. Just wish it was a better offense. So, yeah, this week, this matchup, he's still just a high-end streamer. All right, this one is going to feel weird. Chiefs at Titans. Not Mahomes to Kelsey anymore. It's Gardner Minshew because of the Mahomes injury. So, I mean, we've been through this before. It's Gardner Minshew. What do you think this means for Kelsey? Is this disastrous or not?
I don't think it's disastrous because one thing we've seen with Minshew, I jokingly call him noodle arm, but really he just does not have a strong arm, right? It's not his thing. He cannot throw the ball deep. So, I think it's still okay for Kelsey here, but I mean, how good can we feel? It is the Titans at least. I'm just going to say Kelsey, low end solid here. And there is no way, even against the Titans, I am taking a chance on Minshew. No chance.
No, I don't care. The defense, it doesn't matter. Minshew, no thanks. Kelsey, I mean, I'll agree. At least he's still on the radar here. You figure if someone, I don't know, I can't say benefits, but at least is still viable. It is Kelsey. And look, at this point, this season is over. There is no postseason. I mean, Kelsey's only got a couple of games left, potentially. Who knows? This could be it for him. So maybe he wants to go out in style. You know, for Tennessee, Cam Ward had a decent game last week against a decent defense. Does he do it again? And then what about rookie Gardner Helm? Made another nice touchdown grab.
Yeah, this is the Chiefs defense. I mean, look, maybe. There's always maybes, right? Maybe anybody can go, but I cannot do this. Too risky.
Yeah, I agree. It's not the best defense these days. I mean, they've actually been kind of letting down too. Trent McDuffie, top corner, has been out. But still, yeah, too risky here. Cam Ward has to be a sit. Gunnar Helm, I think you could stream him, but again, this is getting a little desperate. Now, possibly the most intriguing matchup of the week is going to be the Jaguars at the Broncos. Two teams that continue to pick up steam, and now they're clashing in Mile High. So with that said, Jags and Trevor Lawrence coming off arguably his best game ever. Well, now he's going from the Jets to the Broncos. I don't think you can imagine a more extreme change in circumstances from one week to the next. So how does he face it?
Nah, going from home against the Jets to on the road against the Broncos cannot feel good here. I know he's been on fire lately. He's been playing great. I get it if he's your QB1 and you're like, I'm not benching him, but I'm just going to say super flex this week. And Brenton Strange, I think it's time to move on here. This guy's just not involved enough.
Yeah, and this is not a good matchup anyway, so Strange, you can ignore him. Trevor Lawrence, I think just because he's been so good and because the Broncos lately have been in a little bit more high-scoring, matchups here. I'm not saying this is going to be a shootout or anything, but I think he at least is streamable. Again, prefer him over some other options that might be there. And he is running, right? Ran in a touchdown again, so gives him a little extra juice. And on the other side, we saw Bo Nix coming off his best game of the season. And then the tight end there is still Evan Engram. I mean, hey, it is a revenge game.
Is he even on the field? I honestly don't even know. Does he even play anymore? I don't ever hear his name. Does he even catch a pass? There's no way I can start Evan Engram here. I'll say Bo Nix, a risky streamer this week. It helps that he is at home, but this is a much tougher matchup than even he had last week. But, I mean, hey, he's got upside at least now.
He does have some upside. Not a great matchup, but he's definitely a streaming candidate the way this offense is going. And to answer your question, yes, Evan Engram did catch a pass. Exactly one pass. Well, look, for what it's worth, the Jags are one of the worst defenses against tight ends. They might need him. I think he's barely on the streaming radar. All right, Falcons at the Cardinals. And, well, this is shaping up to be a battle of the tight ends. If there was one, and there's, I think, only exactly one tight end drafted early this season that was worth it, it was Trey McBride, and he proved that. Well, what about Atlanta? I mean, yeah, Kirk Cousins, whatever. Kyle Pitts. Look, Kyle Pitts, is this it? Has he arrived now after last week with a historic fantasy performance, and is he a must start?
You know what's coming this week, right? You know, 2 catches for 10 yards or something and just going to crush everybody this week, but look, we might also see Drake London back this week, which would hurt. But he's been mostly good with Kirk Cousins, and this is another good spot against the Cardinals. But obviously not expecting last week again, probably ever again for Kyle Pitts. But I'm going to say Pitts is solid. And then I'll say Cousins, he at least showed signs of life last week. It's a good matchup. You can play him in Superflex.
Yeah, well, that would be it would be crushing. Let's face it. If Drake London came back and Kyle Pitts had 2 catches, but we wouldn't be surprised, would we? Okay, if London doesn't play, I think you have to say Pitts is strong, not just because of last week, but in the past month, ever since Cousins took over. London has been out. Kyle Pitts has had a target share of like over 25% every week. He is the number one receiver here, and the Cardinals are not a great defense, and they've got all sorts of injuries. It seems too obvious, but you've got to start Pitts. Now, if London does come back, I think he just moves down to the solid tier. You still should feel like he's going to get targeted plenty, and the connection is there. As far as Kirk Cousins, only because of the matchup, not because of last week, you could super flex him. And for Arizona, in Jacoby Brissett, at this point, what can we say, right? Just start him and that's it?
Yep, that's it. Just start him. There's no questions anymore. I mean, unless you got like Josh Allen or something, you just start Jacoby Brissett.
Raiders at the Texans. A lot of questions for the Raiders side here. Well, first of all, who do you think is going to play quarterback this week? And then, not that that matters too much for fantasy, but it does matter for Brock Bowers. I mean, we were maybe optimistic about him last week. That was probably a mistake. I mean, God, Kenny Pickett did not think that he could be that bad. I mean, honestly, do the Raiders even score a point against this Houston defense?
Not if it's Kenny Pickett again. I mean, honestly, I kind of just hope it's Geno Smith. I mean, give me Aiden O'Connell at this point. Let's see what Aiden O'Connell can do at least. At least he'll chuck it. You can't start whoever the Raiders quarterback is on the road against this defense. No chance here. I will say Brock Bowers, if it's Geno Smith, I think he's still at least got to be solid. We know Geno Smith will target him enough and he'll actually get some yards. But man, if it's Kenny Pickett again, I might even say sit.
I think if it's Pickett, you have to. It's the Texans defense, and yeah, Trey McBride just had a monster game. I mean, Trey McBride has been great all season. He's been dominant, and Jacoby Brissett has been good all season. Geno Smith barely would keep Bowers as a streaming option, and that doesn't seem like it's far-fetched. Just look at what Bowers didn't do last week. So on the other side here, how good do we feel about this Texans offense against this Raiders defense?
I think you got to feel pretty good. I can't go crazy here. Like, I can never feel like too good about CJ Stroud. Last week, liked him as a streamer. He obviously was better than a streamer. I'm going to say again, a streamer here. And I'm just going to keep saying Dalton Schultz is solid. Like, just if you got Dalton Schultz, you should just have him locked in. This guy has had 5 or more catches in all but 5 games. He gets like 7 catches, 8 catches. It almost doesn't even matter. The matchup solid.
Well, this is interesting because I got him flipped. And I broke this down on the waiver wire video. I think Stroud is one of your better options to pick up and just put in your lineup if you need a quarterback because it's the Raiders, enough said. Dalton Schultz, it's interesting because he has been kind of alternating big week, down week, big week, down week. And for I don't know what reason, the Raiders over the last 8 weeks have actually been the toughest against tight ends specifically. You know, they're a pass funnel, but more to the outside receivers. So I think Stroud is totally fine here. Schultz is a streamer, but not one I actually love. Steelers at the Lions this week. We can't love the Steelers offense, although they did put up a lot of points last week. And I mean, they are at Detroit. You got to wonder, are they going to put up points?
Well, they might have to, right? It might be kind of the reverse of what we saw last week where they're in the Dolphins role and like throwing the ball a ton in the fourth quarter trying to come back here. I'm going to say Aaron Rodgers, super flex. I can't go any higher than that. I'll say super flex. Only because the Lions have been so bad against QBs and they may have to throw it a lot. I'm not starting any of these tight ends.
Well, even in a pretty convincing win last week, Aaron Rodgers was still just barely mediocre. I know the Lions defense has been bad. I just cannot bring myself to recommend Aaron Rodgers for your fantasy lineup in week 16. I'm going to have to sit him. And then I'm also going to just conveniently ignore all Steelers tight ends. Now for Detroit, of course, Jared Goff at home. Steelers defense, all right, they didn't roll over despite all the injuries last week. But this is a much better offense against the Steelers here. And Jared Goff has been pretty good lately.
Yeah, you got to feel good. Felt good about him last week in that matchup. You got to feel good about him again here at home in the Dome. I'm going to say very solid start this week.
Yeah, very solid. I mean, might not need to pass the ball as much as he has the last couple of weeks, but the Lions still need to win, and they're going to keep their foot on the gas pedal. Dan Campbell doesn't play conservative, so yeah, I think Goff should be totally fine, solid this week. And then the nightcap, it's going to be a good one. The Patriots at the Ravens. Kind of a crushing loss for New England, so how does Drake May bounce back?
I think he should be fine this week. He's probably not going to run in 2 touchdowns again, but I think he should be. He's been mostly solid this year. I think he's going to be solid again. Like, not one of my favorites, but certainly better than most options here this week. And then Hunter Henry, no chance.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I really thought last week that the Patriots would need to pass the ball more to keep up with Buffalo. It turns out the opposite. They were able to run pretty easily, including May, those 2 touchdowns on the ground, and didn't pass a whole lot because they were up early. But anyways, this matchup isn't quite as good. Ravens are kind of middle of the pack in terms of defending the quarterback. May still has rushing upside. He's got that high floor. So let's call him what he's really been most of the season. He's solid. Then we still can't call Lamar Jackson a must start because he still isn't putting up elite numbers, even against the Bengals last week. Again. But that said, you can't go too low on him, can you?
No, and look, they didn't have to do anything last week against the Bengals, like on offense. The Bengals put up no fight, which I don't think anybody expected that. The Patriots are going to put up a fight. The Patriots are still fighting for the number 1 seed, for the division here. I think Lamar Jackson should be solid this week, and don't even ask me about the Ravens tight ends. Done with these guys.
Oh no, against the Patriots and that defense, which is good against tight ends for sure. No, done with them. Lamar Jackson, again, you feel like he actually might be better this week, like you said. But, Patriots usually don't give up big games to quarterbacks, so solid is where he stays. All right, save the best for last. Okay, no. Actually, it turns out Phillip Rivers just plays on Monday night. Colts taking on the Niners. George Kittle is a must start, you know that. Brock Purdy predictably smashed the Titans last week. Does he do it to the Colts?
I mean, he should. This is not as good a spot as he had last week against the Titans, but it's still a good spot here. You got to think, in this offense, the weapons he has, he's got to be solid.
Yeah, no reason not to think that Purdy is going to be what he has been. So, don't know if this is going to be a super high-scoring game, but it's okay. Sometimes quarterback, if you don't have an elite player, just take the high floor. And then, honestly, props to Phillip Rivers making the comeback, making it through the game alive. He's going to be the starter again, apparently. They saw enough. Look, they somehow almost won that game. Do you see a better version of Phillip Rivers this week? But really the question is, what do we do with Tyler Warren?
Yeah, nobody's considering Phillip Rivers, I hope. No chance here. No chance here. Tyler Warren, man, oh my goodness. Another one of these guys just... Look, Michael Pittman, you thought you had one of the best, value picks. Tyler Warren, you thought you got a steal at tight end, and now you're like, can I even start these guys? Only because it's the 49ers defense, and they've struggled against tight ends ever since they lost Fred Warner. I'll say Tyler Warren, a streamer, but a very risky streamer here.
Too risky for me. Again, he didn't see a ton of targets. Like everyone thought, Phillip Rivers loves the tight end. No. He was throwing it as quickly and as short as possible. I don't see why that would change. He's not going to gain a bunch of arm strength in the next week. There's no upside here. Can't do it. All right, there you have it. Quarterback and tight end, everything you need to know for Week 16. But of course, there's a lot more we have to offer. Check out everything you need to know to win in this week's playlist.